Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Bacon. Welcome to the show. Jayen was pissed off, but he had enough sense to know that he had to look into the situation because he didn't understand how in the world was Orlando able to get a police officer to come and push up on him, right? Because this wasn't like the police caught him doing anything or anything like that. It was just they were pushing up on him, wanting him to push him away. Orlando don't know nobody like that. So he had to figure out how in the world did he do this, because if he's got connections like that with the police department, it could be trouble for him and everybody else that Orlando knows. So he did a little digging, talked to a few people in the streets that know some police, and started asking questions about Orlando and his girl and all this and that. And he found out that Orlando's girlfriend has a friend that works in the police department. So when Jayen found that out, he figured this must be how this came about. Now, whether Orlando knew about it or not was irrelevant. He had to settle his mind on a couple of issues. The one issue was, is Orlando working with the police now? And two, did he have anything to do with this? And he surmised on his own without any more information that it's irrelevant that he knew or not. He figured he wasn't working with the police. This has to be his girl that did this on her own or with him. It doesn't matter, but it's her. So when he concluded that, he figured that she's the problem then. She's got to be the one that's influencing him to not want to be part of the game anymore. She has to go. Because he figured if I could get rid of her, right? That's what he was thinking. Get rid of her, and I can get my friend back. Everything will be like it used to be before he went to prison. And even while he was in prison, because he didn't express all of this, I'm through with crime and all this kind of stuff while he was in prison. Not to Jayen anyway. He hinted around about wanting to change his life and do things different and all this and that. But Jayen figured, like most people, that's penitentiary talk, you know. But it turns out that it was true. So now he has to figure out what to do about her. So he seeks the counsel of the dude that put him and Orlando on. And when he went to talk to dude told him, you got to be careful about things like this. This is a long game issue, not a short game. You don't want to go in there like a bull in the china shop and tear everything up, because then you're not going to get what you want at the end of it. He said, you got to find somebody to finesse the situation. And he knew exactly what Jayen needed to do. And he told him he had some friends out of state. Couple of females, right, that were masters in making sure that whatever it was you was trying to get done was able to get done in the streets. Listen to me. These females were so cold at the game, they didn't mind being in a relationship with somebody for a year or two before they pop down on them. They want you to be so off guard when it happens, they'll do whatever it takes. Spend time with you, get to know your family, get to know your strength and your weaknesses. And then before you realize what's going on, it's over. They done got off with your money. They done ruined your life. And in some situations took it. You understand? So Jayen got in contact with him. And they talked it out. And what Jayen wanted to do, he didn't want to hurt her. Not physically. But he wanted her the trust, that hold that he believed that she had over Orlando, he wanted that broken. And the best way to break a person's hold over somebody, to break the trust that people have in somebody, is to discredit them. You have to find a way to poke a hole in the reputation that they have with that other person. If that other person sees them as somebody honest, trustworthy, and dependable, what you have to do is to show that other person that that person is not honest, not trustworthy, and is not dependable. And these two women were the type of women that would be able to pull this off of him. So when they came down and they had this conversation, they did all the homework and research, and they found out that she was a nurse and all this and that. They knew the hospital she worked at, what she did at the hospital, and all this and that, right? So they decided to get jobs at this particular hospital. And then when they got hired at the hospital, the first mission was to befriend her. But get cool with her, get close to her, right? So they did that. And after about 3 to 6 months, they would sit and have lunch with her and talk with her and all this. And they were from out of town, so nobody knew them. So they could paint whatever narrative they wanted to paint as far as, family connections, why they moved and what's going on with them and all of this kind of stuff, right? And they knew exactly how to get under her skin. They told her that they had been in a relationship with somebody in prison and they were trying to move away from the state that they were in so that when they got out of prison, they could move down there with them and they could go on with their lives. Oh, that hit her right in the gut. You feel what I'm saying? Because she's involved with somebody that's in prison, so they were cool with that. All of them talked and they shared, ideas of how they wanted to live and the dreams and all this and that. So she slowly started to tell them about Orlando and how he got locked up and the people that he knew and the things that he went through while he was in there, and they related to it. Or at least they made her believe that they related to it because they were going through the same things with their imaginary boyfriends that were in prison. You see what I'm saying? So now they started to form this bond, this sisterhood of individuals that share something that is so intimately connected, meaning relationships with somebody in the penitentiary, that if you're not in a relationship like it, you're not going to understand what it means and what it is to go through ups and downs with somebody like it. And they made her believe that they loved their dudes like she loved Orlando. And she was gone. She was gone. Now, Orlando didn't know them. Nobody knew who they were other than Jalen and the dude that put them on with Jalen. So Orlando's been going on with his life. Everything is fine. Jalen is out of the way as far as Orlando's concerned. He hadn't shown his face at all. He'll see him here and there, whatever, but no contact, no conversation, no nothing. So the way Orlando saw it, Jalen had moved on with his life. Good for him. He wished him no harm, but he wanted them to stay out of that way, So now Orlando and his girl were throwing a housewarming party, right? They had been doing good and been out. He had been out for a while. And now things were starting to look up for him, and he got a raise at work. So they wanted to share this moment with a few friends that they had and their parents and all this and that. And lo and behold, Orlando's girl invites her two new friends from work so that they could meet Orlando. And when they got there, they met him and they talked to him about what it was like in prison and told him about their boyfriends that were in prison, at least their imaginary boyfriends anyway. And he's telling them, keep encouraging them and keep them on the positive track and do all of these different types of things. And they're sucking it up and they're listening to him and they're talking to him and they're thanking him so much for all of the insight and advice. And they wanted to know if, when they get out, could he help them find a job? All of the types of things that make you start to feel as though you can trust these individuals. You know these individuals. And he drank the Kool-Aid. And his girl did too. So they started, not all the time, but maybe 1 or 2 weekends out of the month, they would all go out to eat because they were from out of town. They didn't know anybody. So they wanted to make them feel like, you had somebody that you can depend on and all of these different types of things. So they started to form these bonds. And then, as time went on, you're going to have girls' night. There were those times when, Orlando's girl wanted to just go out with them and they would have a good time and they go out to the different bars. Not anything, too fancy or too fast for them and all this and that, right? Because apparently, you got to make sure that all three of them, are doing the right thing as far as Orlando's concerned. So he would trust it, right? So they would go out and have drinks and all this and that and have girl chat. So while they were out, one of the girls, they had decided to push the boundaries just a little bit and see how far they could go with Orlando's girl. So it was a guy at the bar, right? And one of the females went to the bar to get some drinks. And it was all planned, not the dude, but between the two females. She went to the bar to get another round of drinks, right? And when she was coming back, she said that the dude at the bar, which he was trying to buy them a drink, wanted to buy all of them a drink. And she told him that, yeah, come on over to the table. They could chit-chat and talk. But they let him know that he was talking to 3 women that were already in relationships. He didn't mind. He just wanted to have some good spirited conversation and so on and so forth, right? So she invited him on over to the table and waved him over. Now, Orlando's girl, she's looking at it like, I'm not going there. You feel what I'm saying? But she also looked at it like both of them, they still don't have a man at the house right now, so maybe they just like to enjoy, a little something on the side every now and then, right? So when he came over, they talked and they drank, and then after about 15 to 20 minutes, he excused himself and he left. So they started to talk about what they would do if they had 5 minutes alone with him. You feel what I'm saying? All those different types of things, right? And she just sat there and she was laughing and joking. You know how everybody's kicking it around and, when they go out like that. And she didn't never say, no, I wouldn't do that. She just laughed and said, I hear you, girl. I see what you're talking about. He is cute. And this, that, and the third, but, I'm in a relationship and all this and that, right? But if I wasn't, that type of thing, right? And so the other two, they were talking about, well, we're in a relationship, but our man's not here. We need to get at him tonight and see if he can have a double for the trouble. It was all game popping, just to see if she was going to push that moral issue, step up and say, no, don't do this and don't do that, right? They wanted to see if she would let her guard down. If she would let her hair down for a minute and just get loose. So she said, I see it. She said, well, I guess I'll be going home and let y'all go on and do what y'all gonna do. And she left. Now, they had no intentions of actually getting with dude that night. None at all. They just wanted her to think that. So when they were leaving, they catch him on the outside of the bar. They talk to him and whatnot and invite him, to get in their car so they can go back to the place and freak him out. You understand what I'm saying? But as soon as Orlando's girl was gone and out of sight, they put him out of the car. They needed her to think that. You understand what I'm saying? So she went on. So the next day at work, they were all talking and laughing, and they were giving her this elaborate story about what happened and how they flipped him upside down and how he made them feel, the touch of a man and all this. And it's been such a long time, but they were not going to ever say anything to their dudes about it. And they made her swear that she would never say anything about it, right? And then, lo and behold, she opened up her mouth and said a little too much. She said, I've had my weak moments when Orlando was still in. And then they said, girl, go on and spill the tea. So she started to tell them about this one rendezvous that she had a long time ago, early on in the relationship with Orlando. You understand what I'm saying? And how this dude was this and that and that and this. And they said, what was his name? Where can we find him? And she's like, no, I ain't going there like that. You know what I'm saying? We ain't no sharing and all that old kind of stuff. You know what I'm trying to say. So they knew then that she had some dirt that Orlando probably didn't know. If you want to break somebody's trust and prove that they're not honest, that is the easiest way to do it. So now the search was on to figure out, who was this guy? Who has she been messing with? She no longer messed with him. So what they did, check this out. Check this out now. They started getting around the town and trying to find people that knew her, talking to other people at the hospital that knew her. And lo and behold, they run into a nurse that knew her back in the day that didn't like her no more. She gave up the dude's name that she was involved with. She didn't know anything about Orlando. She thought that she was involved with dude, all right? So now once they get that name, they bump down on him. And they flip him. They got him up in there and they put it on him, and he starts talking and telling them everything they wanted to know. He didn't understand why they wanted to know that. He didn't care. He just wanted something. And he got it from both of them. I told you they'll do anything to accomplish what they set out to accomplish. You understand? So once they knew who he was, where he lived, and all the things they needed to know about him, they reported back to Jayen and let him know that she's not good at two shoes like you think. She's not all that. She was involved with this dude that lived on such and such side of town and did all these other types of things, but she broke it off because this was early on in the relationship with Orlando. But she ain't messed with him since, and nobody since, right? So he said, that ain't enough. He said, we got to get her dirty now, because he might know that, he might not. You never know. And then it was so long ago, he might forgive her for something like that because it was early in the relationship. He was methodical about this thing. So check this out. So they kept kicking it with her. And they kept making her believe that they were seeing this guy and these other men and all this and that, right? And they finally got to the point to where they tried her. They said, look, have you ever been in a threesome? She said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And they said, no. Not with men, but with women. See, they went both ways, y'all. They went both ways. And she said, no. And they asked her, would you think about it? She said, because that way, listen to me, this is what the two women told them. See, they said this is how they stay loyal to their dudes. They just mess around with each other. And they wanted her to join in with them because they liked her. You know, they told her how fond they were of and how beautiful she was and all this and that, right? But she didn't have any need for that because she got her dude and she was happy and she was straight, right? But let me tell you something, y'all. You out drinking with somebody, don't leave your drink. Don't leave your drink. Because she got up and she went to the restroom and they dropped it in there, slipped her Mickey. When she came back, she drank, and she drank some more. And she started to feel woozy, y'all. Yes, she did. And they got her. They took her back to the crib, and they didn't do anything, but they made it look like they did. They got pictures and all this and that, right? And lo and behold, the next week at work, they showed her the pictures. And they told her, this is when they went all gangster on her. They told us, look, you got 2 weeks to pack your bags, break up with Orlando. Just get out of his life. Get out of his life. And she told him, no, why are you doing this? What's really going on? And they didn't tell her anything. They just told her, you got 2 weeks to break it off with him. It's over. Or we're going to show him these pictures. Simple as that. She went home that night crying her eyes out, not knowing what she was going to do or what she was going to say. And he could tell something was wrong. He could tell something was off. And if you want to know what that conversation was like, you're going to have to tune in to the next episode. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.